This did not feel good to hear. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I saw this, I was just like, they got to Richie too. So just to give you guys a little bit of a backstory. So my channel got demonetized. And why did it get demonetized was because I was talking about Israel-Palestine issue, and I showed video of footage of what the actual Palestinian people were going through. And it was some video that was not suitable for younger viewers. If people were triggered by war, then it wasn't suitable for them. But I did it because I wanted to show the reality of what was going on against Palestinian people. And I figured that somebody like me, I would at the least, if anything was going to happen, it would be the stream would get demonetized, or I would get an age restriction, right? So at the least, I thought I was going to get age restriction. At the most, I thought that stream was going to get demonetized. But instead, what ended up happening to me was my entire channel got demonetized, and I got a warning. And so some of what I showed was actually from Richie Medhurst's stream as well. Well, apparently, it happened to him too. So
wait, so some of the things that you showed, because I didn't see the whole stream, but some of the things that you showed came from Richie's stream?
Some of it, not all of it.
This all makes sense now, though.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share Richie Medhurst talking about what happened. So let me make sure I get to this part, 38:31. Because let's see, 38. Okay. All right, so let me share my screen so we can get to this. And the stream is titled "Why I'm Leaving YouTube." So, just so you guys can see.
And you know how despicable this whole situation is. So YouTube decided to demonetize my channel. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Well, all of a sudden, the same day, I start getting spammed like 20 goddamn emails from YouTube. Like, oh, we've age restricted your content. Now we've taken down your content. Now, you have a community guideline strike or whatever. So you've been placed on a blacklist for the Gestapo. Turns out, all the videos that they either removed or age restricted and used as an excuse or a basis to then demonetize my channel. Can you take a guess what these videos are about? Are they about PlayStations? Are they about banners? Are they about cars? What do you guys think those videos were about? I'm looking at the comments. I'm waiting for you. There you go. There you go. Danielle nailed it. It's about Israel. What a coincidence. This.
Oh, oops, I didn't mean to do that. So, yeah.
I just want to say this is very familiar to me. I remember watching David Pakman, of all people. I remember David Pakman. What's that guy's name? David Pakman, the guy from Rational National.
David Dole.
Okay, David Dole. David Pakman, David Dole, and Kyle, all at one point. This was years ago. This is before we even started this channel. They all got hit. Like, I remember this. They all, because like David Pakman actually showed on his channel all the videos that YouTube went back and demonetized or whatever. But I think the difference was they didn't take demonetization away from their entire channel, from what I understand. And that was back when, and see, think about this. That was back when, before, like, David had sponsors. And then next thing you know, David Pakman started having sponsorships, like on the show. And then next thing you know, he got over 1 million subscribers. So they have been doing this. This is the thing I want people to understand. Even before we started the show, they have been doing this. But since certain topics have started, they have actually increased the strictness of how they go about doing it.
Yeah. So this basically is similar to what happened to me on my channel. And so the funny thing is, I got a community guidelines warning. And with the community guidelines warning, I also got demonetized. Now, typically when you get a warning, you're still monetized. It's just you have that warning on you for a few months. Basically, YouTube is saying, we're watching you. And if you mess up one more time, we're giving you a strike. But instead, I had just a warning, which means they were watching me, but they still demonetized me.
Which is not common, by the way. Like usually that's not what happens when you get a warning. You still have your monetization. And they also created a course. So this was new. They created a course for channels that had that warning, where they go watch this video, they take this little course. I think you did that, JB, to get the warning removed. Yeah.
And the warning gets removed after 3 months. So that warning is going to stay on my channel until almost mid-January. But if I didn't take the course, the warning would stay on forever, which means that if I mess up one more time, then, right, I get that strike. The problem is that I didn't realize, I wasn't thinking that they were going to demonetize my entire channel just for that. And that stream came out not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday before. So about 9 days ago. So because I decided to share some of these videos, it classified me as glorifying a violent organization.
And that's the same thing they hit Richie Medhurst with too.
Yeah. And the thing is like, okay, so who's the violent organization? According to them. Because when you look at the facts on the ground and who's committing the most violence, I got to be very careful in my language, but we've been covering it on RBN. So, and my coverage of it was actually the condemnation of violence by this particular state. That's what it was. But to them, it's like, oh, no, you're glorifying it. You know, and this is why, and the sad part is, I could have been more careful, and I should have been more careful with what I showed. But when it comes to showing what's actually happening on the ground from a journalist perspective, we should be able to show it, to share what really is going on the ground. And nobody should have to purse or censor themselves just to be able to show what's really going on. You know, even if they got an age restriction, okay, fine. But we shouldn't have to walk around eggshells just to appease a corporation. You know? And I think that for those of us who are still monetized, who are still talking about this issue, I don't think it's fair to them that they have to be as careful as they are. You know what I'm saying? I just think that it sucks, you know? Like, for instance, I have to be very careful in my language because I want to make sure RBN stays monetized, because it would not be fair if I said something wrong and then it affects the rest of the group. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, we shouldn't have to, and nobody should have to. Richie Medhurst shouldn't have to. who's Danny Haifong, his streams were getting throttled just by talking about it. I don't think Danny even showed much of anything. Just by talking about it, his streams got throttled. So I'll just say that much. I don't want to keep going, but.
And this is why I always tell people, like, the best way that you can support, you know, independent commentators is through their Patreon or their Gifts and Go, whatever they have set up. That is the best way that you can support them.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it sucks because Richie, if I'm not mistaken, I think Richie Medhurst has over 100,000 subscribers, and it's crazy.
180. He's approaching 200,000.
This is the second time they demonetized my channel. The last time was during the Abraham Accords. You know, those crappy Abraham Accords that Trump did. And then you remember Netanyahu wanted to take like another chunk of the West Bank, you know, because it's not enough, of course. He's not content with Palestine. And all of a sudden I get demonetized. And back then it made even less sense. It was something like something with copyright. I was like, copyright? What do you mean copyright? It's me. I literally sit here and talk to myself alone like a madman. There's nothing else going on. And so that was about Israel in 2020. And now Israel is bombing Gaza, is slaughtering Gaza. I'm going to talk about the hospital after this. And all of the things that I did. So, for example, on October 7th, when the Hamas operation started, that video deleted, gone. It's gone. They deleted it. They deleted it. And you know what? You know what they said? They said it had something to do with glorifying criminal organizations. I'm saying that.
I got the same thing. Exact same thing.
Yep.
Yep.
That's it. And obviously neither of you were glorifying. You weren't glorifying anything.
No. Mm-mm. No. And I was just talking about, you know, what the resistance was doing, resisting illegal occupation, and what the state was doing in, you know, violence against the occupied people. I have to be very careful. Sorry, guys, but
yeah.
Now I'm looking at criminal organizations. What do you mean? What criminal organization? La Cosa Nostra? Was I sitting here like, you know, applauding Pablo Escobar? What does that mean, criminal organizations? And so, of course, on YouTube's own website, they go into a little more detail and they tell you what they mean, right? They also include terrorist groups. Now, who gets to define what terrorist is? And I think this is a very important question because we are talking about an American company, and the word terrorist became a buzzword thanks to George Bush and Tony Blair, and used as an excuse, you know, to just slaughter people, to kill 1 million people in Iraq, and then go into Libya, and then go into Somalia, you know, wherever they please. It's 19 countries in total. So I just want to show you here what they have on the website, all right? So they say here, if you're posting content produced by violent, extremist, criminal, or terrorist organizations. Again, I don't know what that is. Doesn't apply. There's literally nothing here that applies. Then I start looking at one thing, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's this one. It says content praising or justifying violent acts carried out by violent, extremist, criminal, terrorist organizations.
Hold on. Let me just share this really quick.
Yeah, so everyone can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I am looking at is the second one. Says content praising or memorializing prominent terrorists, extremists, or criminal figures in order to encourage others to carry out acts of violence. Could this also be somebody praising George W. Bush and encouraging people to go after certain people in other countries? Would that also fall under it? Because in my view, that could be some of the things that somebody like Nikki Haley said. I would consider that to be worthy of you know, something that YouTube guidelines would flag. You know,
it would. Yeah, technically, based on that definition, that would fall under that.
Yeah.
But again, like what's the
Zero fall
narrative,
under that
right?
definition.
Right. Well, that the one at the bottom, JB, content that depicts the insignia, logos, or symbols of violent, extremist, criminal, etc. So technically, wouldn't that also be the Azov battalion?
Yes, exactly.
You see what I'm saying? Like they come up with these broad, like, you know what I mean? And like it doesn't apply to everyone and it doesn't apply to everything. It just applies to what they want it to apply to.
Yeah. You know, and my question is like, you know, what about news stations that show people flying the Nazi flag or the Confederate flag?
Right. And then I also have to add too, is that what some people may not realize, I know some of you watching this, you're like, well, I see, you know, the other channels, some of the other channels have no problem talking about the stuff, doing the stuff. You got to understand, like some of those channels are protected.
Yeah.
So like, for example, TYT, if they run into any type of issue, they're going to be all right because they have a channel they have a network within YouTube, if that makes sense. So if they get like pushed back on anything, they can just reach in, tap their partner, their actual person that they can contact and just say, hey, you know, can you fix this for me? And that kind of thing. And that's the other thing we were talking about before, JB, about being up under or being affiliated with an MCN, because that's the thing is like they're able to go in and get some of these things removed.
Yeah.
Like the age restrictions, the demonetization, like all they can go in and get those things like removed. Like, come on, like everybody, like pay attention. Like Rising can talk about these things. TYT can talk about these things. David Pakman can talk about, they can show these images. So why, you see, so it doesn't apply to everybody. And that's another issue that people have with YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, and ultimately it's about money, because if you side with an oppressed, occupied people, you know, versus an authoritarian state, then unfortunately the goons of the authoritarian state will go to this platform and go, oh, well, if you guys continue to allow this person on here, then we're going to take our money from you too.
Yep.
And that's ultimately what it's about. All right, so let's continue.
Violent, extremist, criminal, or terrorist organizations. Again, I don't know what that is. Doesn't apply. There's literally nothing here that applies. Then I start looking at one thing. I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's this one. It says content praising or justifying violent act carried out by violent, extremist, criminal, terrorist organizations. Now, obviously, I never did this, but in their minds, I know what the problem is, because I didn't get down on my knees and start licking Netanyahu's ass.
I forgot about that part.
Well, okay, I made it sound like I'm 70 or something, but these pillars of international law that have been there for close to a century now, they make something very, very clear. It's not my opinion. This is the law. This is the law. If you are occupied by a foreign army, by an occupying power, you have the right, every right under the sun, to do whatever the hell you want to get rid of them.
That's the part right there, JB.
Mm-hmm.
What he just said, that's the part right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the thing is, it's like if you express that opinion, then the platform will tag you for it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though by international law, the occupied people do have that right.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, platforms like this, you can't say that unless they are the state,
right?
You know. So yeah. But yeah. So from what Richie Medhurst is saying, is that he is going to be discussing. He's not going to be discussing anything having to deal with that state or a lot of that stuff in the region as much on YouTube. He's going to be moving on to Rockfin, Rumble, and Odyssey, which he's grown his Rockfin audience. I think he was at around 8,000 at the time last night, and now he's up to 11,000 on Rumble. So,
That's
and he has
good.
over 20.
That's good for Rumble for someone who's a left voice, because Rumble is primarily conservative. Most of the shows are conservative. Yeah. So that's good.
And I'll be honest. And Rumble don't pay nothing, at least for people like me. So
they don't pay anything for me either. Because I was telling people about this the other day. I was like, I've been on there for almost like a year, and I've made $44. Monetization on Rumble is not like how it is on YouTube. Because see, YouTube has AdSense.
Yep. And so that's why,
I do just want to add something really quick though, because this is to prove a point.
Sure.
Last week, I covered the fact that the story about Jackson Hinkle's channel was completely removed from YouTube. No more. He was already demonetized, but it completely removed. And I remember some people were like, don't give this person attention. Don't talk about this. And I said, look, I don't agree with Jackson Hinkle on everything. You ain't got to agree with Jackson Hinkle on everything. You don't have to like Jackson Hinkle. But just because you dislike someone, does that mean that they should be removed from a platform? And some people were just like, well, no, yeah, I understand, but it's him and I don't like him. And then I said, okay, what if it happens to someone you do like? And then here we are a couple days later, and now it happens to Richie Medhurst. And this is exactly what I was trying to warn people about. And Jackson Hinkle had just gotten back from, I don't think he's there anymore. Like he went to Russia. And some people are wondering, like, is that what pushed it? The Russia trip.
Yeah. And so that's the problem. And I just, I think, we should be more principled in our stances when it comes to certain people, even if we have vehement disagreements with them, like, certain people, like Jackson Hinkle. I'm honestly of the opinion that a platform like YouTube is too big to be privately owned. That's just my opinion. Because it's falling under the same guise as like a Facebook or a Twitter. You know what I mean? Like it should be a utility, in my opinion.
Well, the other thing that I was going to add too is that Rockfin, FYI guys, is a worker co-op.
Yeah.
And because it's a worker co-op, that's why Rockfin, in order to be a creator on there, you actually have to apply and they have to accept you. Rockfin didn't want to get too big too fast. So that's just something to remember, guys. Rockfin is a worker co-op.
Yeah. Which RBN is on Rockfin. We're literally streaming to Rockfin right now. But just letting you guys know, if you guys have not, I also was demonetized. And so if you guys would like to, you guys can go to my channel and support my channel if you guys would like to. I'm on Patreon and PayPal, just like a lot of other people like Richie Medhurst. He also expressed that as well. So, yeah. But unfortunately, that's what we see. And be prepared to see other content creators that are especially on the left like us maybe might get demonetized in the near future too if they continuously talk about this, because they're not playing around. So just like
they're stricter with this than they are with Ukraine. And they were already strict with Ukraine. So
yes, definitely.